Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello everyone, welcome to Ask Rob and Rob, the show where you get your questions answered. And we can do that in a few different ways. We've also got the Sunday Times as well, where we answer your questions each week. So lots and lots of knowledge being shared. And we make it super simple for you to get involved.
So simple. Just go to propertyhub.net/ask. You'll find everything you need to know collated there. But if you want to end up on the show, you need to send us a voicemail one way or the other. And that is what Philip did.
Hello, Rob and Rob. Philip Hatch here. Thank you for the fabulous content. You've inspired me to take the plunge and make the first purchase in my multi-million pound property empire 20-year project. So thank you very much. Question. You've advised on doing lots of research in the area. I want to find somewhere where it's likely to improve over the next 10, 20 years, preferably in the second 20 years. How do you do that research? Your advice was to look for government investment. Where do I find that? You advised to look for building companies investing in building large housing developments in the area. How do I find out if that's going on or not in an area, apart from Google? Your help would be most appreciated. Thank you.
Philip, thank you for your question. I like this question for a broader reason than just the answer I'm going to give you, because property investment, the majority of it is just straightforward, common sense stuff. So there's a lot of people out there preaching like fancy, wacky schemes, and you need to know this insight and knowledge to be able to operate, but you don't. As you've identified, Google is a great tool. And I could tell you some websites, like if you're looking at the Northwest region, you could look at the Place Northwest, where you can find updates on developments and what's going on and infrastructure projects. But you don't need to get into that level of detail, because it's the major projects that are going to make a difference to an area. If an area has got a few $100,000 to spruce up a high street, that's nice, but it's not going to make a meaningful difference to property prices in that area. It's big projects like a big manufacturing plant that employs thousands of people. That type of scale, that type of level, that's going to make a big difference. So if you use Manchester as an example, there are multi-billion-pound schemes that are happening in the Greater Manchester region. And then you can look at somewhere like Stockport. And Stockport, as a small place, has over £1 billion being invested in it, which is just incredible. And then you get other cities that don't have anywhere near that level of investment. So you could carry on listening to the podcast, because we'll update you as and when we hear things that are interesting. We also talk on a regular basis to the areas that are capturing our attention right now. Derby being a great example of that. It reminds me of Manchester 5, 7, 8 years ago. It's not going to become Manchester in 5 or 8 years, but it's that underpriced asset. It's just that there's so much going for it. So many major employers, high wages and low property prices seems to scream to me great value. So that's why we're focusing so much on Derby at the moment. But between Google, keeping an eye on the news of when massive projects are being announced, like Crossrail and major factories coming into an area, that's the stuff that really matters. And then the areas that are looking really exciting, well, you can search on Google or just carry on listening to the pod. There's no real smart way. There's not one secret resource that we use that we go, right, okay, let's never tell anyone where we get this info from, but share the info on the pod. It doesn't happen. It's just us looking at this day in, day out, observing markets, and then making recommendations. But the great thing is that these markets don't change overnight. It's all very slow moving. So we recommended Manchester for many years, and we could do for many years because it takes time for an area to change. We'll probably recommend Derby for many years for that same reason, and we'll continue to observe and watch, and when there's somewhere else we're excited about, we'll talk about that area too. So there's no secret insights, Philip. That's the brilliant thing. You don't want it to be secret. You want it to be easy, and it is.
Let's see if this next question is easy. This one comes in from Ash.
Hi, Rob and Rob. This is Ash from the Midlands. Been listening since you guys started. Thanks for all your content. Just got a quick question about managing your properties day to day. So I wondered what you use to keep track of cash flow, income, potential capital gain, potential opportunities for increasing loans on properties, that kind of thing. I kind of feel I've got a number of bits of different software that I don't really use to its full extent. So Xero, Dext, the business bank account, but it's not really used for day-to-day monitoring the portfolio. So I just wondered what you guys used, and if you could give us some advice. So thanks again for your content, and look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you. Goodbye.
Ash, here from the start. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your support. I'm going to give you an answer that is not worthy of your support because the honest answer is we don't do much. So there are different software options out there, and I've tried a couple over the years, but never been able to make anything stick because in the way we invest, at least, it's overkill. So if you go through the things that need to be done as an investor, if your properties are managed for you, then you don't need to think about any of the actual operations stuff. If you're self-managing, then of course you need to record key dates like tenancy end dates and safety certificate renewal dates, but you can just do all of that in a calendar easily enough. Then there's the day-to-day bookkeeping side of things. So for that, I use Xero, Xero, which pulls in bank feeds, makes it really quick to categorize the transactions. You can then categorize them by property and get a profit and loss statement for each property on a monthly basis, which I don't really look at, but it's nice to have if I ever wanted to. But for years and years and years, I just use a spreadsheet because there aren't that many transactions for every property. You've got rent coming in, mortgage going out, and normally a few other expenses, but nothing that's too tricky to manage. And then in terms of insights and monitoring the portfolio, one of the things that I really like about property is that you don't have to do much of it, and you shouldn't be doing it too frequently. We often talk about doing an annual review, and that is a useful exercise where you can go through, think about how your properties are performing, maybe do a little informal valuation to see what you reckon they might be worth, see if there's equity in there that you want to tap into, check your rent levels and see if there's any change you want to make at the next renewal. But again, that's something that you do so infrequently that software doesn't add a lot to it. So if you are very technically minded, software minded, you can set something up for yourself, and there is no problem with doing that at all. I do know a small number of people who've got very elaborate spreadsheets, not just covering today, but also projecting out over the number of years what might happen based on today's trends, and so on and so on. But if you're not minded in that way, just a spreadsheet is fine. And you don't need to feel like you're missing out because the vast, vast majority of investors who I speak to run their portfolios in that way. So I guess the answer, Ash, is that we don't really use anything. In our business, we're all over the metrics and software and all things like that because it's an operational business. But for our investments, we don't because we don't really need to.
That's us done for another week. Thank you for listening. Make sure you join us, in the papers at least, on Sunday in the home section of the Sunday Times, where we will be answering more of your questions. And this Thursday, of course, the Property Podcast will be back, so join us then. Until those lovely events occur, take care, have fun, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.